Welcome, geeks, to another exciting episode of Rockin The Code World with dotNetDave. I'm David McCarter. I'm glad you're all back from the holidays, and I hope you had a great, awesome, fun holidays with no family drama and all that kind of stuff. And I hope you got something cool, hopefully something techie cool for the holidays. But I'm glad you're back. It's been a crazy start of the year. I don't know about you, but across the world, America and politics, it's been kind of crazy already this year, and so we'll see what happens. So it looks like uh, our my guest was having some issues. It looks like things are okay. Let me know if they're okay, Simon. But our guest, if everything works out, is Leslie Richardson. She's been on the show before, and she's going to come in, and we're going to talk about Visual Studio, debugging, and a bunch of other stuff, and also your questions. So make sure if you have questions, make sure you type them in now, so we can get Leslie to answer them for you during the show. And what else was I going to say? Well, if you're in America, I hope you're staying warm because it seems like America's experiencing a huge cold wave going on right now. Even kind of where I live, there's only one as of this morning. There's only one state not dealing with some kind of crazy weather thing, and that's actually where I grew up in Arizona. So, but most of Arizona is a desert anyway. So. Um, Leslie's our guest today. I'm glad she's back. I kind of said that already. I'm losing my train of thought because of the difficulties getting this set up this morning. So anyway, I do want to talk about my new book, my 8th edition of Coding Standards for Microsoft.NET is out. Here's the proof copy. I don't have the real copy yet. I'm still waiting. And it's hard for you to see, but it's the biggest book I've ever written by myself. It's 560 pages, and I worked many months last year on this book, and I added over, I think, 230 new pages, I think. So it's got a ton of new information. Updated versions of some of my articles and things like that. And I know this book will help you and your team, write better code. I can tell you from experience that almost every single team I get hired to work in, either one doesn't have coding standards at all. So that just means everybody codes any way they want. And we all know that's not a good idea, right? If you're going to maintain in that features later. And number two, if they do have coding standards, they have very little, like maybe one web page or a couple web pages. And that, of course, isn't nearly comprehensive enough to, make sure that all the code is high quality and also make sure it all looks like it's been written by the same person, easy to modify later. And that's what this book is all about. It's been around since 2005. It's the only pure coding standards book out there. And so if you're a .NET developer, I hope you go pick up a copy. This month, I'm selling it actually because this book is so big, it actually really upped the printing cost. And so this month, I'm selling it at the old price. And so just this month. And so if you want to get a copy and save some money, buy this month. And because I'm going to start raising it in February. But if you do get a copy, please let me know how you like the book and if it's helping you and your team. And if there's anything that you would like to see in the book, please let me know. And I can always add that to the next edition. I don't know when that's going to be. Maybe in a couple of years. We'll see. I pretty much have decided I'm only going to release books now on the long-term support of Microsoft .NET because, trying to keep this stuff updated every year Microsoft puts out a new update is getting really challenging. So anyway, I hope you go pick up a copy. I'm also running a contest on my Twitter feed right now. that if you want to guess how many times I mention the refactoring tool I use, CodeRush, in the book, the closest number wins an autographed copy of the book and some other swag that I'll ship anywhere in the world. I usually don't do that, but since I'm trying to promote my book, I'll ship it anywhere in the world because that gets really expensive. So go to my Twitter feed if you want a free copy, autographed copy, and guess how many times I mentioned CodeRush. I can tell you it's more than the last book. That's the only tip I'm going to tell you. Actually, I don't even know how many times I've mentioned it. I'm going to count that up at the end of the month when I give away the book. Okay, that's enough about the book. Also, I have a new article out called Modernizing Microsoft Office, a Call for Innovation in Word. And I wrote this article twofold because actually working on the book, the book was delayed because one of the big factors was Microsoft Word. And I had so many issues with a large document in Microsoft Word trying to get this book out. I was constantly crashing on me. I was constantly losing work. It would constantly change formatting. It's all in the article. And it really was really frustrating to try to get this book out using Microsoft Word. And so I wrote this article for two reasons. One is I hope Microsoft Word actually starts paying attention because I've been sending them messages about almost everything in that article for years and nothing has happened. And so part of it is just hopefully to get some exposure in the Microsoft team. And the second part is, I kind of want to warn developers out there that if you work permanent at a company and you have a program, you really need to make sure that you listen to your users, you make sure your app is easy to change and things like that, because this is a cautionary tale where Word to me hasn't hardly changed in the last 20 years, and I really feel they're really far behind in technology and what they could be doing with Word, especially with the new powerful machines and things like that. So the other reason I wrote the article was to try to inspire you to make sure you keep your projects up to date with the latest technologies. Listen to your users. They're the ones that paid the bills. And so I hope you give it a read. You go to dotnettips.com. It's right there. It should be right there up towards the top of the scroll feed. So I hope you go check it out and learn something from it too. And if you're experiencing problems with Word, let me know because I'm also going to be writing articles about PowerPoint because that really drives me crazy. And Excel, because I use Excel a lot in my code performance stuff, and I constantly have problems with Excel too, with the charts. And so I hope I'll be writing articles about those when I get time. All right. So today I'm welcoming back Leslie Richardson as a senior product manager on the C# developer experience team and hosts the Visual Studio Toolbox Show, which I like, on YouTube and Twitch. She started at Microsoft in 2018, working on improving Visual Studio debugging and extensibility experiences. Leslie focuses on improving productivity across C#, Razor, and cloud-native spaces. Welcome, Leslie.
Hi.
Hey. So
how's it going?
Everything got worked out, huh?
Yay, at least for now. Knock on wood.
Well, those of us who've been speaking for a long time know that if your demo doesn't crash, it's not a good demo, right?
Yeah, for real.
That's actually why I don't do live demos in conferences anymore because
really?
of that. Yeah, I haven't done a
Well,
live demo in a conference for probably over 13 years.
wow. Yeah, because I actually did just have a live demo fail on me.
Yeah,
I was at Dev Intersection back in December, and I
yeah.
had a VS Code demo that decided to not crash on me, but I made a dumb error while I was writing my code that I couldn't catch until after the fact, like literally 30 seconds after the session's over. I'm like, oh, duh. But you know, when
Yeah.
the pressure when you're on stage in front of
It's a
50
lot of
plus people,
pressure.
like, oh God, trying to debug your issue.
Well, and also trying to keep everything going and trying to
Right.
fix
Yeah.
it
So
at
I
the
was like,
same
okay, moving on.
time. And it's just,
Yeah.
back in 2010, I think is when I started this. And, I decided, okay, look, I'm doing the same talk multiple times. Why not just pre-record the demos, right? And
Right.
just to save myself time. And also because, most conference talks I see start falling down as soon as they go to the demo, right? Because instead of talking to the audience, they're talking to the computer, right?
Right.
And they're
Which
not
is going to keep
engaging.
that conversational
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
going. But yeah, that's what I aim to do at least.
And so I've been pre-recording all of my demos, and then I just talk over them, during the conference talk, which allows me to not worry about typing and talking at the same time
That's
and all
fair.
those kind of things. And also it makes my demos never fail because they're pre-recorded,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't have to rely on the internet, which also is not good at conferences
Oh yeah.
most of the time. And
I know for
so,
but yeah, I'm glad that works. I know for like a lot of people. I know for me personally, I actually find it harder to pre-record and then talk over because I I don't know, I can be a bit of a perfectionist, so I
mm,
usually deliberately try to avoid scripting myself when I'm doing talks and
yeah,
things. It's
yeah.
like, oh my God, I got to keep pace with the the video that I pre-recorded, which I've had to do before, and it always gives me more anxiety than
Oh, really?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
To me,
there's
it's the
something about being
opposite.
able to pause when I want and go from there, even if it fails in some areas where it's like, oh, I feel
Yeah.
like I have more control. But
The best demos I've seen done by software engineers is when they have two people, right? It's when
those
one
are always
person,
fun. I love tag teaming
yeah,
personally.
yeah,
Yeah.
one person talking and one person typing, right? And that
Mhm.
that to me works. But if you try to do everything yourself, it's going to you're going to lose. To me, you're going to lose people. And and I try really hard, and at least when I talk, to not to lose people, right? And maybe that's why my talks are standing room only or whatever. But I try not to lose people because you only have a short amount of time. You had to keep them engaged, right?
Mhm.
And software engineers are not the easiest people to keep engaged either, right? So
No, but yeah, we make it work.
yeah, especially with cell phones and everything now, it makes people divert their attention and things like that. So. But I'm glad it got worked out, and I'm glad you're back. And everybody out there listening live, make sure you ask Leslie questions about, let's see, debugging, productivity, the C Sharp Dev Kit, VS Code, and Aspire. So Brady's going to be here, I think, next week, and he's going to be talking about Aspire also.
Yeah,
And
yep.
so,
He was kind of the original or one of the original people on the Aspire team when it first got started up. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm
and
sure he's
I've
got a lot of cool info to share.
and something I do if I haven't looked at something, if I have a guest coming on, I try not to look at the subject too much because I kind of want to be surprised, just like the guests.
Mhm.
I mean, just like the viewers when they learn something new and cool that you guys come on and say. And so I kind of purposely have not looked into Aspire too much because Brady's coming, and um, so I can be surprised on what it will do.
Awesome.
How was your holiday?
It was pretty good. I was mostly in Florida for the bulk of December. Originally, I was down there for Dev Intersection at the start of December, but
Yeah.
decided to stick around in Orlando for 2 weeks after that because I have
Hmm.
a lot of friends that I
Hmm.
wanted to see and couch surf at and stuff. So did that for 2 weeks and went back to my parents' place up in the Panhandle and chilled out. Did a lot of baking, did a lot of reading, and
Hmm. Are you from Florida?
yeah, I'm from Florida. Well, the short answer is yes, I'm from Florida. The long answer is my dad was in the military growing up, so
Mm,
I've
mm.
been all over the place. But
Yeah,
I've been
so
in
was
Florida the
I.
longest. So yeah, that's what I tell people on the when I only have 30 seconds to pitch
Yeah,
myself. So
I was in the Navy, so
oh yeah, my dad was in
yeah,
the Air Force. So
yeah, yeah.
cool.
Um, well, before we get going, one thing I've been doing is I've been coming up with questions for the guests, and I've been I've been using AI for this, and so ChatGPT came up with a good question to ask you, and I kind of wanted to ask this
Oh
real
no.
quick
Okay.
because I find it interesting, especially since you're kind of newer in this in the tech industry.
Mhm.
Can you share more about your journey at Microsoft, particularly how you transitioned into a role of senior product manager and your experiencing working on the Visual Studio debugging and extensibility team?
Ooh, okay,
Yeah,
go.
it came. That's a good question.
Yeah,
I didn't even come up with it.
meaty question. I'm gonna use that for my own show. Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to school, University of Florida. Go Gators. Uh, just decided to pick up computer engineering as my major on a whim because I didn't know what else to do. Ended up falling in love with it. Java was the first language I ever picked up, and yeah, I was really enjoying myself. And I think my turning point where I was like, I think I want to do product management or program management, which is what our titles used to be called
Yeah. Right.
until like a year ago. I was interning at Disney working on some software development stuff. It was more in the low level hardware field, but one of the components of my assignment was talking with the operations team for the safari ride in Animal Kingdom. If you're a
Hmm.
Disney fan like I am,
I love
and I was
Disney. Yeah, I
working,
see
yeah.
Mickey Mouse on your
Oh,
shelf back there.
yep, yep. Back there, I've got the Lego Disney Castle back there somewhere too. It's bad. Yes.
I love Disneyland and Disney World.
Me
Yeah.
too. Yeah, so I was at my internship, and one of my favorite aspects of my project was not the GPS development and writing the code behind it, but more the getting to talk with customers and then being able to further design the front facing interface that needed to go alongside it for operations to be able to track where all the different vehicles were going. And yeah, I just loved picking people's brains and figuring out what has worked in the past, what hasn't worked in the past, and trying to problem solve with how can we get to a better outcome that's going to
Hmm.
satisfy people. So from there, after that internship, I changed up a lot of my electives
Hmm.
for the remainder of my college stay, and I changed it to a lot of like design focused and product management type things. And yeah, so I applied to Microsoft as a product manager. Third time's a charm, actually. I applied to Microsoft like 2 times prior to that and
They're
didn't.
tough to get through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't. Yeah, it was tough. But third time's a charm, and it was for the one that mattered, the full time one. So
Yeah.
since then, yeah, I joined the debugger team first, and I was freaking out. I remember because I was like, at most, I might use print statements and the occasional breakpoint when I write code. So what do I know? And like one of the very first assignments I got, like 2, 3 months in, I remember I was actually sitting in my developer division orientation when I got the email telling me I'm being voluntold to put together a talk for something called Build. And I was like, what? What is this? I was like panicking. I'm like, I've never given a talk to more than like a classroom worth of people. And it was like 20-ish people. Like, you got to be kidding me. So did that. And I guess that was my pipeline into both the talking and doing conferences circuit, as well as just realizing that there's a lot of people out there from a debugging standpoint who don't fully take advantage of all the cool tools that
Oh yeah.
debuggers have to offer.
I'm sure all
regardless
of us
any
don't.
degree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm not alone. And that's always been my angle whenever I talk about debugging tips and tricks ever since. Like, hey, like I know if you're like me, you love your print statements, but check it out. There's so many other cool things that can help you be even more productive that you are worth exploring. So that's always been my approach. And I think the same goes for extensibility. When I joined that team, I was also new to not extension usage necessarily, but writing extensions. And when I joined, we were working on the new and upcoming, still ongoing Visual Studio extensibility project, which is where the goal is to basically rewrite the entire API library for writing
Mm.
extensions in Visual Studios from scratch, because as it exists today, it is not the greatest experience. So when I first joined the team trying to write a basic like Hello World style extension in VS, I was like, this like I feel so dumb. This isn't working. Why? And then I wrote similar kind of extension in VS Code, and it took like 30 minutes. I was like,
Mm.
this is a problem. So yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah. Extensions have always been tough in Visual Studio, and I hear things from some of the third-party vendors and other people that write extensions, and they get upset at you all the time because things change and then their stuff breaks, and so yeah, I think we need a really easy way to do extensions in Visual Studio, and some of the other things too that might be a little more difficult to do, like source generators seem to be clunky to me. I wish that was kind of easier and more streamlined, and a couple of things like that just to make it easier, right? Because you're right. It's kind of tough to write those things because there's been extensions and generators I've wanted to write, but every time I sit down and look at it, I go, "Oh man,
Like,
maybe
oh,
I'll do
never mind.
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe I'll go play guitar instead."
Right.
So
Yeah.
so, but yeah, if we had a really good, and also extensions that behave better in memory, that would also be nice too, because some extensions can really drag down your application, and
Oh, totally.
yeah, and and there's some that I basically have to turn off unless I'm actually using it, because it kind of slows Visual Studio down so much, and um, so yeah, we definitely need better ones.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's what the extensibility team's up to as
Yeah,
their big project in the moment. So fingers crossed,
yeah.
it starts
Um,
to gradually get better.
well, the main guy is Mads, right? Mads
No,
Christensen.
so
Oh, did he leave?
yeah, so Matt
Oh,
still is still at in the Visual Studio zone and stuff. He does a lot of video content and stuff these days. But currently on the extensibility team, shout outs to Tina Schreffer and Maya Kellner, the engineering lead and the PM lead,
hmm,
respectively, on the extensibility team. They're doing a great job with their team, I think. Like
good.
it's been cool. It's definitely a long, long timeline because of all the work starting from scratch entails with this new extensibility model. But it's been cool to still be lurking despite no longer being on that team and seeing all the progress they've made since I first joined it. Like it's pretty cool. So
Yeah, well, was it? Oh yeah, Olia was on the show in December. Olia
mhm,
Garvish,
mhm.
and she showed, and I still need to get to this because I promised her, but she talked about the new upgrade thing they have to upgrade versions of .NET to a newer version.
Mhm.
I forget what they call it now.
I'm blanking on the name too.
Yeah, and I have, yeah, after when she was going to come on and talk about that, I go, oh, okay, Microsoft's upgrading experience has not been very good in the past, and even so much so that there've been, like, when they used to come out with them when I was teaching class at the university here, I would tell people not to use it, you know, just do it yourself. And but what she showed me was really impressive. It really looked to me like they really hit all the pain points, and they made it all pretty simple and easy to manage and make decisions and things like that. And I, at least for what she was showing me, I was really impressed. And so I hope that continues at Microsoft, where we're going to get these things that really solve what the issue is and not become more of a hindrance.
Yeah, totally. That's what I hope for as well.
So we don't have any questions, which I kind of figured, but what do you want to talk about first, as far as debugging? Or let's see, get back. There we go. What do you want to talk about? Debugging or the C Sharp Dev Kit, or what do you want to
Oh
talk?
gosh, hard. We can talk about C Sharp Dev Kit for a little bit. That's one of
Okay.
my more recent things I've been up to, and there might be some overlap with VS anyway. But yeah, C Sharp Dev Kit's cool. Install it if you haven't already. Shameless plug. But if you're unfamiliar with it, C Sharp Dev Kit, it's a brand new extension that just went GA back in like early October for VS Code that enables you to be more productive writing C Sharp applications in VS
Hmm.
Code. So in the
Oh,
past,
that's only for VS Code.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This is the VS Code side. So it's weird. It's interesting. Since I joined the .NET team, it's been interesting to work on stuff that needs to be applicable for one side or the other, or sometimes both.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I used to be so VS gung ho, and like I like DevKit because as somebody who considers herself more of a VS user versus VS Code, one of my frustrations, or some of my biggest frustrations with trying to write C# apps on the VS Code side, if I was just like feeling like it, or I had a machine set up where it was easier to use VS Code one day,
Mm.
I would always find it frustrating to do because of things such as a lack of consistency in terms of performance and reliability for certain basic features like IntelliSense and colorization and things like that. And also, especially as the debugger person and as somebody who likes to have a good experience with debugging, especially if I'm going to spend a lot of time trying to debug an issue, the basic task of just hitting good old F5 in VS Code was not fun. You had to update the launch settings.json file. I'd be following the documentation, doing everything right, presumably, and it still refused to work. I'm like, this is a Hello World console app that I'm using as a test to get F5 to run properly before I go into my actual code that I need to worry about. And I'm still having issues. And I usually just say I give up. Go back over to VS. So with C# Dev Kit, when I first joined that team of getting that put together, I was pretty excited about it. Where it was like, oh my gosh, we're fixing all those issues. Yay. And I wouldn't say it's 100% perfect yet. And I mean, I think it's improving with every Wednesday release. Every Wednesday is when we update it. But it's been great because it improves a lot of the things that I just mentioned, such as overall performance and reliability when it comes to like colorization, how long it takes to open files or projects, IntelliSense, and also introduces tools that I am familiar with as a VS user, such as the Solution Explorer for managing all my different projects that make up my solution, which is helpful. And of course, debugging, where now I don't have to worry about a launch settings.json file if I don't want to, and I can hit F5 and choose my debugger choice and off I go. So it's the little things. But it's great because it essentially now it gives you an end-to-end development experience for C# applications that's not headache inducing. I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So speaking of VS Code, we do have a question that is, and this person's asking both of us. I'll let you go first. So which is best to use Visual Studio VS Code? I'll let you.
Cool. So my answer to that is I genuinely think it's a personal preference thing, and depending on what your own personal needs are. Personally, not speaking for anyone else, just myself, I like Visual Studio because of the debugger. Not gonna lie, I got indoctrinated on the debugger team, and I've been using those tools ever since. And that is like what pushes me to lean towards Visual Studio if I have the choice to go that route. That said, VS Code is great for the really awesome qualities of being lightweight. You can basically develop anywhere with VS Code. You can use a web browser, you can use a code space, you can be on your crummy machine like I am currently that's running as slow as molasses, but VS Code isn't going to take up nearly as much space.
It's Visual Studio. Yeah, I
know. And also it does support a lot of additional languages that Visual Studio doesn't. However, for some people, including myself sometimes, while VS Code is very extension driven, like at its core, VS Code is still an editor first, and you have to add a bunch of extensions to get it to the development environment that you personally need. Visual Studio, I find you can do a lot of what you aim to accomplish just right out of the box. So depending if you're like me and you're kind of lazy and you don't want to do all your research on what are all the different extensions that I need in order to accomplish my work, it's nice to go the Visual Studio route. But at the end of the day, they're both part of the same family. We aim to make both just as good, and there's a lot of people who use both. Like I use both. So it's like whatever fits your mood. So I wouldn't say one is inherently better than the other.
Yeah. For me to answer that, I agree with you in everything you said, and for me, part of it is just because I've been using Visual Studio ever since it first came out, right? And so I'm more familiar with Visual Studio. but Visual Studio is the workhorse, if you ask me, right? Where you have everything in there, including not only debugging but performance and have all these extensions which you can add, which I've I was mentioning CodeRush at the beginning. There's some extensions that I can't live without that just don't work in Visual Studio. I mean, Visual Studio Code, right? And so,
Yeah.
so for me, to me, I can do basically almost everything I need to do in Visual Studio without leaving it, right?
Mhm.
Without using outside other things, right? You can go, you can hit, you can configure Azure, you can configure SQL Server. There's all these things you can do, like kind of like you were saying, right out of the box. It makes it much easier, to use Visual Studio. With that said, like you said, does take a freaking ton of memory, especially if you are using extensions. And we were talking about that, about extensions hogging up a lot of memory, So, to me, you have to have like 64 gigs of memory to use Visual Studio these days
Yeah.
if you're going to use extensions. Um, but I just, to me, I'm more productive in Visual Studio than Code, right? And I've used Code before, and if I just needed to do something really, really quick, or if I was teaching a class or something, and I wanted to show something without waiting for Visual Studio to boot up and things like that, then Visual Studio Code is my choice. But a lot of people are using Visual Studio Code for other things too. Like I worked at this company where, the guy was writing all this scripts to deal with AWS in Visual Studio Code, right? Because he liked it better than anything else out there. And so code can do a lot more different things, if you ask me, than Visual Studio can, right?
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so I
Yeah.
hope that
So
answers your question.
apples and oranges. Yeah.
Yeah,
Whatever. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, really, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of stuff in Visual Studio, which I like, and even though even reinstalling and getting Visual Studio up to the way it should be for me to code is, I wish was easier, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
So, I
probably
mean,
not as bad as code.
yeah. Yep. So pros and cons for each.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
pick what
yeah,
makes you the most happy.
yeah. And do you guys still have a community edition of Visual
Yeah.
Studio, right? Yeah,
Yeah. So you
yeah.
can still use Visual Studio for
For
free.
free. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so what else? Visual Studio Code, productivity. How about you want to talk a little bit about Visual Studio productivity, or did we talk
Sure.
about that already?
Yeah. We can. I know we kind of glossed over it, but yeah, we can talk a little
Okay.
bit about productivity. So yeah, I mean, I like Visual Studio a lot because of all the different little productivity wins that you
Yeah.
get that are ever expanding. I mean, especially with the introduction of GitHub Copilot and everything, it's kind of ridiculous how much you can do. I mean, I was at Dev Intersection in December doing a productivity talk, but I gave myself the challenge in part because I was kind of tired about talking about Copilot as much as I love it. So I was like, I'm going to talk about all the tools that don't require you to have Copilot. But that said, because there's a ton of tools that you can take advantage of in VS, where if you're still on the fence about Copilot, you don't need it to still be productive. That
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
once you do introduce Copilot to your work, I mean, it just takes it to a whole nother level. Things like
It does.
yeah, like the debugging insights and the
Hmm.
testing insights that it's able to figure out now are like scary good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like seeing recent demos at Ignite and .NET Conf and stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, it can do that now. Like it can
Yeah.
actually just figure out what's wrong with my code or just give me some nice what do you call it? Like profiling smart insights and things.
Hmm.
Like I know the debugging team's been doing a lot with Copilot as of late. Uh, so yeah, on that front, it's been crazy. And then I love just the little things. I think one of my favorite more recent features that entered the productivity mix in VS is, I mean, I don't even know if there's an official name for it, but it's the ability to hover over specific standard library classes and methods. And when you see the pop-up that comes up for that, so like the IntelliSense pop-up, there's sometimes an option to link to examples of how that method or class is getting used across different open source GitHub repositories.
Oh,
So it
really?
will, yeah. So if you click on it, you can see a side-by-side window that
Huh.
opens up in VS with a bunch of different examples, which is really nice because instead of having to go to Stack Overflow in a separate web browser, you can see how it's being most commonly used in actual real world examples, which is very
Wow.
helpful without having to leave the comfort of VS. So
Well,
yeah.
maybe I can use that to see if anybody's using my open source projects.
Yeah.
But Copilot, I think when I was working on, because right now I'm working on updating my open source projects at .NET 8, and it's taken me a while because I decided to do some breaking changes because of the 8 version,
Mhm.
and so I'm still working through those. But it even came up. I think once it even came up with a suggestion on the documentation of my code, and I was going,
Wow.
"What?" Yeah, it wrote a really good sentence on what this method did or whatever. And I go, "What?" Which is great. Which is great. I like that. But yeah, it comes out with some stuff. Maybe it's my machine, but maybe I code too fast. But it seems to lag me a little too much sometimes. But yeah, I think AI assisted things are really going to help developers out in the future, right? And what we have now is just baby steps on what's going to happen, what we're going to have in
Oh yeah.
6 months from now, even, right?
Mhm.
And so yeah, I'm interested, and and especially since I write a book on coding standards and things, one of my goals, with not only my writing and everything, but my hopes with Visual Studio and something I've talked with the team about a bunch, is to help, have ways of making developers code better, right?
Yeah.
And not just code the way the code most of the code I see these days, right? And
Right.
so
And
I'm
that
hoping AI is going to help with that. Yeah.
I hope so too. Yeah, because one of my if I had a big concern about Copilot or just AI in general, my hope is that I have trust knowing that the code that it's giving me is like good code and
Yeah.
it's pretty well optimized and it's not something that's going to like completely tank my app or something like
Yeah.
that, especially if I'm new to a language and I don't necessarily know what the standard is for certain scenarios.
Yeah.
Like that is my hope, that it can start to be consistent about giving you an ideal kind of code setup.
Yeah. And Simon and I both know that ChatGPT does not write very good .NET code.
Oh no.
And
Yeah.
and if you just wanted to show examples and things, that's one thing. But if you actually tell it to write some code, it writes code for libraries that don't even exist,
Yeah.
and things like that.
For what?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. But so
Like I
those things will
assume
get
it's
better.
yeah, I totally agree because like things I'm assuming have since been changed. I was talking to Kathleen, who's awesome, who's a guru when it comes to all things F# stuff, and she's talking about how she had put in what was it? Or she was asking ChatGPT like a bunch of F# related questions and stuff, and it would be able to answer them like conceptually and stuff. But the moment you asked it to write F# code, it would start writing C# code. It's like, ouch.
Well, ChatGPT can't count, right?
No,
It
yeah.
does a terrible job at counting. And I don't know why,
Counting's
that
hard, dude.
because like almost every time I put in, like, I have it help me write tweets to promote my articles and stuff, right? And almost every time I tell it, write a short tweet with room for a link about this article, and almost every single time it's too big for a
Goes over.
tweet.
Yeah.
And I go, that's too long. Oh, sorry. Here's an alternate. Nope, too long. Sorry. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Tweet. Did you not see tweet there?
Right.
You know how big they are, right?
Right. Oh
Well, it's
man.
the same thing with I use Adobe Firefly to create unique and images now, right? And
Mhm.
like I've changed all my PowerPoint slides to AI generated images and things, and the one thing that really frustrates me about AI and all the AI generating things I've tried have the same issue, but you can't really tell it to generate a word in the graphic because it will misspell it almost every 99.99% of the time, right? Like
Yeah.
I was trying to generate a cool looking image to do this contest I'm running this month, to win a copy of my new book, right?
Hmm.
And I told it, above the top of the image, put the word contest, right? And it did every word but that, right? And I had to give up because I just could not get it to write contest, right? Just getting it to write .net was hard, right? And it didn't even do that most of the time correctly,
Oh my gosh.
and I don't know why I keep reporting it to Adobe, going, no, this is not right. Look at the description. This is not what I told it to do, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be better in the
Yeah.
future.
We're
Adobe,
getting there. It's baby steps.
yeah, Firefly keeps getting better with each beta version that it comes out with. I really like the new beta 2 version. Is really dramatically improved the beta 1 version. So we'll see what comes out next. But yeah, so AI is here. It's going to be part of our programming life one way or the other. Everybody out there worried about your job, don't worry about your job. It's AI is just another tool to help us write better code and write better solutions for people, right?
Yeah.
It's not gonna totally get rid of engineering jobs. Some jobs might be less, like I would say maybe QA and maybe things like that, but as far as writing code, I don't think that's going to be impacted too much.
Yeah. Like I'm glad they called it Copilot in the
Yeah.
VS Code space because yeah, it's like I feel like I'm the other co-pilot because it's not always 100% correct,
No,
but
no,
it can
yeah,
help me go in the right direction, which I think is
yeah.
helpful. It's like I was writing a demo. I did like a whole 8-part series on getting started with C Sharp Dev Kit. If you Google it on YouTube, you'll probably find it. Shameless plug. But when I was writing my demo that I was going to use for it, I had to I had to write a method that basically was like start a new game because I was making like a Wordle style game as
Mhm.
my example. So I had a method called start new game in the event the user hits new game. So it would require all these steps about refreshing and clearing out all the different uh, data structures and whatever else I had going on. And yeah, Copilot was able to figure out like 98% of it for me just by me writing the method name, which is
Mhm.
scary and cool at the same time. But again, it was 98%. So that remaining
Yeah.
2%, it was missing like 2 lines of code and I
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
fill
Yeah.
it in. So yeah, like Copilot, not pilot.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, what was I else I gotta say about AI? I forgot, um, but yeah, people don't be worried about your job. Not now. Maybe 10 years from now or 5 years from now, but right now I don't see it really impacting our jobs that much.
Yeah.
Um, I think it'll just make it better if we use the tools correctly, right? It's also the other thing. Yeah, we have powerful tools, but it doesn't mean we're going to use them correctly, right?
Right.
And so hopefully, a lot of people are smarter people than me are trying to figure this out and making sure that because my goal always is to write the best code that for the user that makes them happy, that makes their life better, right?
Mhm.
That's my whole thing of being a software engineer is I'm trying to make someone else's life better somehow, right? Whether at
Right.
work or health related or I've written so many different types of applications, right, in my career. Um, and that's all my job is trying to make someone else's life better. And quite frankly, I'm hoping AI will allow me to write less code, right? Because this is something else I say a lot of time too, is if you're coding all the time, you're doing it wrong, right? Coding should be the least part of our job, right? And code is just a tool, right? It's just a tool to tell the computer to do something, right?
Mhm.
And our job as software developers are to take the needs and wants of the users and turn them into an application, right? And so the less code we have to write, especially the boilerplate stuff, right? The better the apps will be, right? Because we have more time to focus on the requirements and the, all those kind of things, as opposed to, dealing with the latest weird thing I can't figure out, right?
Right.
And or running into a roadblock you can't get past, right? It's all happened to us in the past, and so I'm helping AI will actually make things better, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking forward to see where it goes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll see. It's I saw somebody. I didn't read the tweet, but I just saw somebody tweet like yesterday that and unfortunately, too many companies are putting AI in as a marketing term for everything now. Like,
Yeah.
like I think I saw something about AI and food or something. I was going, come on, and but the what was the oh, I saw a tweet, I think yesterday, somebody tweeted out, I guess they were in like an appliance like Lowe's or someplace, and, they have AI driven washing machines now. And I'm going, what? AI?
What?
Really? Do we really need AI in our to wash clothes? Come on.
I mean, bonus points if it can fold the clothes for me, because that's the worst chore.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Now AI in the refrigerator to tell me what things I need to order. That's cool,
I
right?
like that. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
AI
yeah.
fridge, I get it. Totally.
But
It's
AI
good
in your
level.
toaster or your washing machine, AI isn't good everywhere, right? Come
Yeah.
on.
I mean, I could see an AI stove. Like, I bake a lot,
Mm.
and sometimes the baking time that you see in a recipe, it's a suggestion. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
the rule, and everyone's oven varies. So I think it would be cool if like the oven could check on whatever it is that you input, like be able to identify what it is you're trying to bake, identify the telling signs of, hey, this might be done, and actually configure a time to
Yeah.
feed it you
Yeah.
accordingly. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
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 Because
So
I find most of my pitfalls happen in the actual baking
yeah.
stage of baking.
I think last time you did bring up baking, so I want to ask you a question because
Okay.
I do a lot. I do all my own cooking, and I was working on a cookbook, and since I eat gluten free, I'm working on like a gluten free slow cooker book. But so let me ask you a question since you're a baker or cook. So when you look at a recipe, do you actually use tablespoons and things like that to measure, or do you just use your hands?
I use a scale. Scale is
Hmm.
my best friend for if
For
it's
baking, you
small.
kind of need that though.
Yeah, you want to be
Yeah,
exact.
yeah,
I feel like cooking, I'm a bit more whatever with it,
yeah.
or just things that don't require precision in baking all the time. Like, I don't know. I do a lot of like caramel stuff and
Hmm,
like
hmm.
custard and stuff, which can be a little bit less exact. So depending on how lazy I'm feeling, I'll just dump all the stuff. But usually I use a good old trusty scale that was like
Yeah,
20 bucks at Walmart. And
yeah.
that's like,
I
I tell people the best purchases you can make if you're an aspiring baker, just get a scale. And later down the line, if you really want to commit, get a KitchenAid stand mixer. Like, that's all you really need at the end
Oh
of the day.
yeah, one of those.
Yeah.
Those are really good too. I wish I
Hmm.
had. Well, I don't do a lot of baking, but I've always kind of wanted one of those just because they're so sturdy and probably last forever, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people I talk to, it's like, oh yeah, I got mine passed down from like my grandma and stuff. I'm like, dang, okay. Yeah. Like, I'm not
They're
at
like,
that phase yet because I was the one who bought mine, but it's
yeah,
still going strong at 5 years at this point. So
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, and I do see a lot of AI. Like I watch too much TV, at nighttime, and I've been watching a lot of the Marvel. I recently got Disney after I came back from Lithuania. I got Disney for the first time, the Disney Channel, and I can definitely see where they're using AI and things like in some of the Marvel movies, like when they have an older actor. Like I was watching
Oh, very.
this Samuel S. Jackson as a younger one, right?
Yeah.
But it looks just like him.
Yeah. It's
I
kind of
mean,
freaky.
it's really freaky. Or like when
Yeah.
they did Luke Skywalker, in some of these series and stuff, and I was going, wow, that looks like Mark Hamill when he was younger, right? And
Yeah. Totally wild.
it's totally crazy some of the stuff they do in those shows. But speaking of Disney, one thing I did want to mention really quick, and then we probably have to go, is I've loved Disney ever since the first time I went as a teenager, and one of the shows that I watched that I wish they had this back in when I was younger was the I forget what it's called, but it's the story behind the rides, right?
Yeah.
There's a series.
There's a series on
There's a series on how they made the rides, and so I'm going, like, one of my favorite rides is the Pirates of the Caribbean, right? But the first episode is the Jungle Cruise, right?
Yeah.
And that episode was so good that I watched the movie afterwards because I was going, okay, I'm all Jungle Cruised
got you
out
going down the
now.
pipeline,
I
yeah.
gotta watch the movie now, and just to see their thought process. Like the last one I watched was the one on the California Tower of Terror. They did here, and then they changed it
They
into
changed
a
it to
Marvel
Yeah.
Marvel thing, and they talked about that, right? I do kind of wish these were, because of me, they were a little more technical, but it's still really interesting to see the story on how this stuff came together, and just like, it seems like almost every ride it was like putting it all together at the last second kind of
Yeah.
thing, right? Because they had a deadline, they had to get something out, kind of like our world, right? Where
Pretty much,
everything,
yeah.
all the crap happens the last 10% of the project, right?
Yep.
And it seems like they go through the same thing at Disney.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's like every big enterprise level company
Yeah.
goes through some level of that, for better and for worse.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
art from adversity and all that. But at the same time, yeah, I would like more time to work on the stuff so that it's good out the gate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you would think Disney has all the time, but it seems like they wait till the last minute too.
Yeah. Or sometimes they go over budget and stuff. It's
Well,
fine.
when they changed it to the Marvel, the tower thing to the Marvel thing, and just the timeline, they had to actually do it once they figured their stuff out. I was going, how did you even do that in that many months?
Yeah,
It seems
it's
impossible to me, right? You must have had an
wild.
army of people working on it late at night, when the park was closed or something,
Mhm.
because they typically don't work on that stuff during the day because it'll
Oh yeah, no,
bother the people attending
yeah.
it, right?
I mean, some of my favorite memories when I interned there was just getting to go to the park at weird after hours or
Oh
before
yeah,
hours, like 2 in the morning, to go test something out with either a GPS system or one of my other coworkers' projects for
oh
shadowing purposes and
yeah,
things like that. Yeah, like Animal Kingdom at night is by far the creepiest.
oh yeah, I
Like you
bet,
can still hear
because
the
all
animals
the
and stuff.
animals are out.
Dark out. Yeah, I'm like so.
Well, I don't know if they have this at Disney World. I forget because I've only been there once, but Disneyland has a thing that I use, and that is, if you stay at one of the Disneyland hotels, right, which there are a bunch of them now, you get to go in the park 2 hours early.
Mhm.
And I did that once when I had this girlfriend. We went up for Valentine's Day, and we planned to spend 2 days there, but we left after one day because in those
Those
two
2 hours
hours,
yeah, you
we
can get
got to go on so many rides. Like, I
yeah.
walked onto Indiana Jones ride. I walked on the Space Mountain like 3 times, right? All before everybody else came in, right? And
It's
we got
it
so
is
much
that.
done by noon. We were almost done with the rides by noon. And you
Yeah.
can't really do that at Disneyland,
I
right?
agree. Like, I don't know. I just came back from a Europe trip around the Med in October, and I stopped by Disneyland Paris first, and I'd never been to Disneyland Paris.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah,
they had like an hour extra for guest staying on property. So
yeah,
I did
yeah.
that. Like, I got so much done in that, and they had two parks there. So I went to the second park that they had, and I was like, wow, I think I did like 85% of everything I could do in this park in the span of that hour. Like, you really
Yeah.
don't need that much extra time. It's crazy.
Yeah, when I was at Disney World, it was in the beginning of November, and they already were doing their Christmas thing. So my girlfriend at the time and I, they had this thing like at 8 o'clock at night, they kick everybody out, and you have to buy a
Oh
different
yeah, yeah.
ticket for the holiday festival
Those are
stuff.
fun. Mhm.
And that was so much fun because there was so
There
much
was.
less people there. You know, the fireworks laser show they did at the castle was one of the best fireworks displays I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I was really really impressed.
it's
Right?
super cool. I think the best stuff is like in those holiday parties. Like I go to
Yeah,
that's how I go to Magic Kingdom for the most part
yeah.
these days. Just get a party ticket.
You can dance with the characters, you
Yeah,
know, and stuff like that. And yeah, I really found that fun. Right?
super awesome.
So I have to let you go because it's late in India for Simon. And so I've really enjoyed talking about all the things we've talked about today, including Disney and AI and all that stuff. It's been great having you back on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me
And
back.
since this is your second time, I do have a question I ask all my guests at the end. And since you've already answered the first one the first time, I have a different one for you this time. And that is, what brings you happiness in your tech career?
Ah, I think what gives me the most happiness, especially as a PM, is I really enjoy getting to see people use the product that that myself and the rest of my team have been working so hard on. And like that initial announcement day of the thing, it's always scary, but like it's cool to see all that feedback in real time. Like most recently, just helped put out .NET Aspire and stuff, which you and all the viewers are going to be hearing more about, I think, next week with
Next
Brady.
week. Yeah.
But yeah, like when we first announced it at .NET Conf, like that was like on a hackathon level timeline where we were just going a mile a minute in the span of like 4 months trying to get this together. And I think I was personally freaking out about it, and it was like very well received, and it was live because it was the live keynote, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And it's just cool to talk to people who are using the thing that you created. Like, wow, I guess that wasn't a total disaster as I thought it might be, because I put my hands on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's always really cool, and to have people approach you like, hey, great job on X feature, which happens from time to time since I go to conferences a bit, and I'm like, thank you. That's super cool. And even hearing just things from users that they would like to see improved, I really like too. I think it's a fun challenge to try to address those frustrations that
Yeah.
can hinder people, but then once you figure them out, getting to see the satisfaction on people's faces, knowing that it's no more, is always cool. So that's what gives me a happiness.
Yeah, I totally agree with you because, you know, you got me thinking about this one thing that software engineers don't get to experience very much is talking to the people that actually use their program that they wrote, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of us don't get that, you know, opportunity, right? We just hear things from other people at the company and right, we never get to actually talk to the users. And the few times I've actually been able to stand next to a user using the application that I wrote, right, was just, I remember every time that's happened because it hasn't happened very many times, but the experience was so
It's
rewarding,
surreal. It's cool.
right?
Yeah.
Whether they're happy or not, it's still really
Mhm.
great to hear it from the person actually using it and unfiltered, right?
Yeah.
And to me that gives me, you know, more inspiration to make things better because you know because that's who we're working for, right?
Mhm.
You know we're working for a company but we're really working for the users, right?
Yeah.
They
Yep.
pay the bills. That's who we work for, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
Definitely.
well, I can't wait to have you back on the next time you want to come back on and talk about something cool you're doing in the Visual Studio team. And I've got to head out right after this, so I'm not going to stay around afterwards so we can't geek out about music. Simon was reminding me last time we talked about music or something afterwards. And so,
Oh yeah, we probably
uh,
did. 'Cause I've been thinking about
yeah, yeah.
it.
So we'll do that next time. But I got to go to band practice, and so I gotta head out.
Awesome.
But thanks a lot for being on the show, and you're always welcome to come back on the show whenever you want. Just let me know.
Sweet. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was a great time, a great way to start the new year with Leslie. I really enjoyed our talk about all the different things we talked about. I hope you all did too. I hope you got your question answered about Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio. I think we did that. So the other thing I've been working on during the holidays is I've also been updating my code performance articles on my website on dotnettips.com. A lot of these articles, whoops, I forgot to change the 6 and 7 to 8. But anyway, I've been updating with the latest performance metrics from Microsoft .NET 8. And there are some interesting things I'm finding. And so, like some ways I've been telling you to do things that's the most performant way, I've kind of switched in .NET 8. And a lot of things in .NET 8 where you could do the same thing 4 different ways in .NET. And some of those ways are all coming down to being close to the same performance, some of them. So if you want to find out what those things are, go check out. I have a whole section on my website based all for the .NET performance stuff. And like I said, a lot of the articles on there are actually directly from my book. So I hope you go check them out. I found this geek humor today. You all probably know I love working at home. And there's drawbacks to working at home too, but this is right. You know, when I work in an office, I am so less productive because I'm sitting in traffic, I'm getting lunch, getting coffee, coworkers chatting at you when you don't want them to, and you get very little work done. That's my experience. I don't know about you, but you know, when I work at home, I get so much more work done and better work too, because I can concentrate better and I can make my own food and I don't have to, you know, go out and eat a crappy lunch every day. And so I hope you like that. But this is, yeah, I wish more companies would understand this, but we'll see. And like every week, I hope you will help me help the kids from the slums in Delhi, India by donating to thevoiceofslum.org right now. I'm sure they need your support. You know, Dave and Chandy, who you'll see here in a second, do a wonderful job at, you know, not only teaching kids, but clothing them, feeding them, all those kind of things. You know, when I was there 2 years ago, year and a half ago, we brought them 5 computers so the kids can learn, not only learn, but learn how to use computers, which a lot of the kids have never even seen a computer. I was really happy that Joe and I were able to do that. And so it's a really great organization. And I know this is the month that everybody is giving and things like that. And so I hope you take a few minutes out of your day and go give whatever you can to the Voice of Slum, because it is truly a wonderful organization run by 2 wonderful people that inspire me a lot. And so I hope you go do that. All right. So Leslie and I were talking about, next week is Brady Gaster from Microsoft, and we're going to be talking about Aspire the whole hour. So I hope you come back and join us next week. It was like almost a month off, and I didn't like it. I don't like a month off from my show because I enjoy doing it. Also, I hope you go help your fellow human by donating blood right now, this weekend. In America is in a huge shortage right now. It's a big enough shortage that it's making the national news. And I was there a couple weeks ago and I found out about the shortage, but now I just heard about it on the news too in America. For whatever reason, people not donating, the cold, things like that. They're really, really struggling with blood donations. And so if you haven't given blood, or if you have, please go start this weekend. If you do and live in America, I'll send you some cool geeky swag if you tweet at me that you did it. But you know, we really need to donate blood, because someday you might be in an accident and needing blood, and you're going to need people like me and others donating that blood. So bank up your karma now and go donate now. And it's a really great experience. It makes you feel better about helping other people. I'll be actually doing my normal donation next Sunday. I couldn't get in this Sunday, but next Sunday. So, and I'm sure the rest of the world is experiencing issues too, especially if you're anywhere near one of the wars. All right. Please email me suggestions, including requests if you want to be on the show. and or guests you want me to invite on the show. I'm already booking in April, and so please send those to dotNetDave@live.com. And with that, I'll see you next week.